Each year at Showcase, we welcome back some creative and talented people who completed some of the HSC subjects that are showcased this evening. Some graduated fairly recently, and others 6 or 7 years ago. Each year, our Year 10 and 11 and Year 12 students tell us that they do feel inspired by this segment, and we really look forward to hearing about what each of them has been up to since completing their HSC exams in this very hall. Thank you all so very much for joining us. We're going to start with a short bio from each one. I'm Belinda Farr-Jones, by the way, and this is Robin Wagner, our head teacher of English.
Okay, so I'm going to start introducing Orlando. He was our 2023 English Extension Dux with a standout creative non-fiction piece that was a pleasure to read once he got it together, that examined the realities of 21st century late capitalist societies. His body of work reflected on his evolving relationship with Australian spaces and social dynamics. After graduating, Orlando spent a gap year travelling and working in France while also learning French. He's now studying law and English, but we like to say English and law, at the University of Sydney. Writing has always been a slow, thoughtful process for him, and he's currently developing a work of fiction that he hopes to publish in the future, which I'm very excited to read, drawing on his experiences and observations of the world to give his words depth and meaning. So welcome.
And next we have Thea Schmertman, who graduated in 2020, probably deep in lockdown, and she has completed a double degree in visual communication and creative intelligence and innovation at UTS. While studying, she worked for 2 years as a UX UI designer at Penny, a fintech startup empowering women through financial education and tools. She's now a junior product designer at Offload, a digital freight provider supporting small Australian carriers and reducing emissions. Many will also remember her magnificent timber orrery showcased in the 2019 Shape exhibition.
Next we have Tom Buckingham-Shum, who featured in the Art Express 2023 with his digital animation project, The Artificial Intelligent Artist, which explored human creativity in contrast to AI-generated art. He's now in his second year of a Bachelor of Animation Production at UTS, where he has worked across character design, short films, 3D modelling and rigging. Tom's also in the early stages of curating an interactive art installation with his peers.
And finally, we have Seoko, and she graduated in 2019, and she's a sculpture graduate from the National Art School. She completed her Bachelor of Fine Arts in 2022. Her practice centres on fragile found objects such as dead insects, mandarin peels and recycled cardboard. And she carefully rebuilds these things into new forms. She has exhibited at the National Art School Graduate Show and the sculpture at Sawmillers, Incognito and Art North at the Grace Coffington Smith Gallery. She's worked as an artist assistant for Gary Dimengian, and alongside her art practice, she's also modelled for creative campaigns and recently completed a Cert 3 in nail technology, building on 3 years of nail work as another outlet for her creativity. Can we give them a warm round of applause, please?
Okay, so we're going to ask a generic question to begin with, just to find out where you're all at. So we're wondering if you could share with us where you are now, what you're working on, and how your post-school creative journey has evolved since Tamara High.
Thank you, Robin. I think that summary did it justice. So currently I'm studying law and English, or English and law, at the University of Sydney. After a gap year in France, I'm continuing to kind of write, even though it's a very slow process, as we all know. There's not probably too much else to say. I mean, I enjoy kind of working, mentoring kids in extension to English as well. That's something that's been really meaningful to me. I might just pass it over. Yeah.
Hi everyone. So at the moment, as was said, I'm working at Offload as a junior product designer. So Offload is a logistics company, and we are a a freight forwarder. So essentially that means that shippers like Coca-Cola, for example, need to deliver freight into, let's say, Woolies, and so we make that happen by bringing on our carrier network and sort of making the shipments happen. So what that means on the tech side, in terms of what I work on, is that we have a platform that has multiple different portals for our shippers, carrier, and admin users, and so my role is essentially typically assisting our senior designers in developing new features or enhancements or reworking whatever isn't quite working for our users. And then I also work on some sort of smaller enhancements by myself, and as a junior I'm also responsible for helping out the company in any other design needs, as we are a startup, so there's a lot going on and we're always chipping in. In terms of how I got to where I am now, coming out of high school, all I knew really was that I really liked design and I also really liked Illustrator. And taking that, I did the Bachelor of Digital Communication at UTS, which was essentially a generalized graphic design degree. So from there I got to try out a variety of different things, from like making logos to print design to web design and motion. And from all of that, I figured out that what I really liked was UX design, or user experience design. And that's because it essentially combines like problem solving with making things visual, bringing things to life. And so that was essentially the perfect thing that I wanted to do, and that's how I then landed my job as a product designer, or UX designer. They're very similar.
Following that, I am currently working as a nail tech. I graduated as with a major in sculpture. In my HSC major, I did painting, but I failed painting during uni. I'm sorry, Mr. Buttrey, wherever you are. But that led me to sculpture, which was very good. I've kind of just been working a lot of random jobs. After uni, I worked as an art teacher. Thank you, Mr. Buttrey, wherever you are. And then I did a bit of tutoring. I did a bit of like modeling for some campaigns. And then I started nails after uni. And then I kind of pursued that. I started kind of just mainly on myself because it was fun and it was cheaper. And then got my Cert 3. Now I'm kind of in between jobs and yeah, just figuring stuff out. And I also work at a chocolate shop, Hague's Chocolate.
Hello. I feel like not much has happened since high school. It was only a few years ago. I did an animation for my major, and that sort of inspired me to do animation at uni. It was good. It was a good, fun experience during year 12. So that kind of inspired me to continue down that path. But I decided to defer, and then in 2023 I went for a gap year. I travelled Europe for a month, backpacking and kind of fulfilling my desire for art theory. So I went to one of the art galleries, and I still really enjoy researching and reading and writing about art theory. And then I decided to go and live in Costa Rica for 3 months doing a wildlife internship. And then I started uni in 2024. And in my degree we do a range of projects ranging from short films where we have to adapt from external material to 3D modeling, which is character design. And currently, like what was said in my introduction, we're currently doing an art installation with the theme of thinking of a better tomorrow. So that's sort of teaching us how to problem solve and teaching us how to think creatively so that we can sort of learn the skills that need to be learned so that we're different to everyone else in the real world. Yeah.
Very important skill. If you could just pop that microphone down to Robin, that'd be fantastic.
Alright, so Orlando, we've got some specific questions for you now. The first one that we wanted to ask you was about a different piece. So you chose to examine deserted built environments, and where did you go? How has that concept influenced the things you explore now? Has it?
Awesome. So for my visual arts major work, I worked with photography. So across the year, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I really took Miss Bell's advice just to experiment. That's always what she repeated, and it worked out very well. I decided to do a series of cyanotypes, which are the kind of blue and black prints you get from exposing chemicals to the sun, and that was a kind of a really interesting thing to learn about. In the works, I was kind of photographing old Australian architecture and places that meant something to me, and that was something that kind of carried into my English Extension 2 major work as well, exploring kind of old Australian landmarks and what they meant. Currently, it doesn't impact my work too much. I think those themes were really kind of emblematic of the point I was at in my life and the things I was interested in, like you know, the place around me, memory, growing up, things like that. And so yeah, I just say it was really a reflection of the time of my life that I was in at the time.
Okay, I've got one other question for you. How did your research into Sydney's social architecture shape your creative process when thinking about your English Extension 2 major work?
Thank you. Yeah, so I didn't know specifically that I wanted to focus on this series building for my English Extension 2 major work, but it became a large piece of my work after I chose to hone in on that specifically. So as we both know, I really struggled trying to kind of hone in my work, and it was really broad for like a really long period of time. Yeah, and Miss Wagner was always telling me to just, you know, like write something, choose something to focus on. And eventually I landed on the series building, and how I'd probably describe it and how Miss Wagner described it was that it's like a cyclical process, right? Your research impacts what you're going to focus on, and what you're focusing on impacts your research, and so you're always going back from like writing to research to research to writing. And I think that was true in every kind of creative subject that I did with visual arts as well. You don't kind of just do your research at once and then make the work. You have to kind of go back and forth between them. Yeah.
Okay, Tom, you're next. In exploring AI versus human creativity, what motivated your choice to use time-based 2D animation? Do you remember?
It's been a while since I've watched my major work, but it's still, if not even more relevant now. And we're doing a lot of that at uni right now as well. We're sort of thinking about how AI is being integrated, but I think the reason I did time-based instead of not time-based was due to the storytelling capabilities. So I just couldn't reach the level of like depth or conceptual detail that I wanted to in just a few still images. And I also wanted an auditory element to my artwork, which took the form of AI text to speech. And that kind of wouldn't have been available if I did a still artwork. But I think the reason, I mean, in my artist statement, I said something about 2D animation being an homage to the magic of human creativity or something. But I think I thought of that at the very end. No, the real reason why I wanted to do 2D was 2D animation was because the digital still art was very popular, and I think it still is. And in my opinion, it's so much harder to create a piece of digital art that is more, or if not the same amount as that is not more impressive than like a piece of traditional art. So I decided to kind of test my waters with 2D animation for the first time, just because I hadn't seen anyone else do it, and it sort of turned out okay.
Tom is just as humble as I remember, and he did come first in the state in visual arts, which is so impressive. And I'll never forget watching his film at the Art Gallery of New South Wales with his teacher, Tanya McGurgan. It was a real highlight. Well, one last question. Can you describe a technical or creative hurdle you overcame in achieving your vision? If it wasn't at school, it can be after.
I feel like the main issue or hurdle that I overcame was having never done any sort of animation before my major work. So learning an entirely new medium in the space of a year was a bit daunting, and I remember Miss McGurgan didn't have much faith in me for the first assessment. She kind of looked at my work and said, okay. Creative hurdle was definitely storytelling, and it's such a difficult skill that I'm still trying to refine through uni, and we're kind of being taught all the stuff how to do it. But I think the way I got around that hurdle, got over it, was getting feedback. So I ended up actually reaching out to who's now my course coordinator at ETS for feedback, and I got a meeting with her, and she gave me some very kind of blunt but well-needed advice. And that was quite hard to take at year 12, but looking back it was very useful. And I also reached out to someone who worked on Happy Feet, just by email, and just reaching out to professionals to ask for feedback was such a useful skill in overcoming sort of art block and not really knowing what to do or how to do something. Being able to kind of take the feedback and know that what I'm doing isn't perfect was very useful.
We have brilliant teachers here at Turramurra High School, but please always reach out, connect with universities, industry professionals, get that feedback. It would be our number one tip.
Okay, Taya, I've got some questions for you. So back in high school, you crafted a timber orrery as your major work. What did that experience teach you specifically about creativity and design? And I know you've already spoken about some of those echoes in your practice today, but is there anything that you'd like to add to?
Thank you. For those who don't know, an orrery is essentially, my orrery essentially mapped the constellation of the planets around the sun. So this was, as far as major works go, quite an unusual thing to do for a timber project, but that was exactly what I was going for. So I wanted something that was unique, that was cool, that would really stand out, and I think that sort of premise in terms of creativity has stayed with me as I've gone through uni and now into my work. So I'm always looking to do something interesting, solve interesting problems, think outside the box, challenge myself to whatever I come up with first, take it a step further, see how I can push it. And so I think that's definitely something that was instilled sort of early on in high school doing that major work. Otherwise, I think something that's really important in design is actually having good project management skills, even though you wouldn't necessarily think that off the bat. But doing my major work really helped establish those foundational skills around project management. So things like organization, time management especially, and doing good research. Those were all good practices that I established and I've built on since. And when you're looking at a design project, it's all about what you can achieve within a time frame. So you may want to do every single thing under the sun. I know I suddenly wanted to do even more with my orrery than I actually ended up having time to do. But it's about choosing what has the most impact and focusing in on that. And if there's sort of additional extras and nice to haves, that's great if you get to it, but focus on what's going to have the most impact and sort of make the design work, essentially.
The final question for me is, how has empathy shaped your UX UI design process in recent projects and collaborations?
Thank you. So, as a user experience designer, it is essentially in the name. We are all about the user's experience. So empathy is essential to everything that I do. If I'm not designing something that's going to work for my user, what's the point? What am I doing? That's sort of at the base, that's what's important. So when I'm looking at my work, I'm looking at user needs, I'm talking to people, I'm doing interviews or testing, and I'm challenging any assumptions that I'm making, because just because I think I know doesn't mean I actually know what a user needs or wants. So to put this in a bit of context, I think it was mentioned I worked at Penny, and so Penny was looking at women's financial services, and we were working with users who were women who typically had low financial literacy, meaning that they didn't really like thinking about money, talking about money. They found the sort of concept very overwhelming. So what we had initially in some designs was we had a lot of like heavy content that was very like informative, but like quite technical language. And so when we actually spoke to our users and spoke to women, we got feedback that this was really overwhelming, it was daunting, they didn't really understand what was going on. So taking that on board, adopting an empathetic mindset, we went back to that content we'd written, we refined it, we simplified it, we made it a lot easier to understand so that when we were actually putting this in front of people, it would have the intended impact instead of scaring them off. So that is, I think, a pretty good example of empathy in practice.
That's a brilliant example of it, and maybe I need to check out that app.
Sayaka, your sculptural works often use fragile or found materials. What draws you to those forms?
Basically, the short answer is I like to save money. I think if you go to the art school or any art school, it is very expensive. I'm just gonna be honest. A lot of the uni doesn't really supply for you either. So I found that I had to really source my own materials. So to combat that, I was using things that I could get pretty much for free, so like a cockroach or cardboard, like very accessible. That's pretty much the summary answer of why I use those. I also do kind of really strongly believe that what you use is not what makes good art. You can just elevate any material, and if you have like a good concept, a good idea, if you're creative about it, it will speak for itself. I don't think you need to spend crazy amounts of money on materials and hope that that's going to make your work good, because I just don't believe that that's true. But yeah, that's pretty much why I used it, and I do like to give materials like a new life aside from its intended purpose. So if you have like a cardboard box, a lot of people, once they finish using the box, they'll just recycle it. But I like to creatively recycle and really like maximize the use of the material. I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of mundane objects that we have that if you just apply a different thinking, you can really elevate it. And I think that's what I enjoyed about using those materials.
And what creative or technical challenge did you face working with such unconventional materials?
Okay. Creative and technical challenges.
Technical challenge or...
Okay. Creative challenges was mainly how I could use those materials, a way to innovate it. I think that was the most difficult part of really finding my way around them. When I was at uni, I used materials like soap and dog fur and like Glad wrap, so really, really accessible materials, but then putting them in a lens that doesn't look like the material. So with this soap, I like microwaved it. And I don't know if anyone's microwaved soap, but when you microwave soap, it explodes. And it turns into this like really crazy fragment, and it's like bubble. It's like an Aero chocolate, if anyone's had that. So things like that, and like the Glad wrap, if you just have huge sheets of Glad wrap and draw on it, it's pretty cool. So I think those were the biggest creative challenges. And then technically, just knowing that you're going to fail is kind of hard to grasp, because I didn't really have a point of reference where I could look at previous works that people have done with soap, that have microwaved soap. So I think things like that was quite hard, because I really just had to go for it. So my work did consist a lot of experimentation and like trial and error, and really accepting that you will fail, and that's the part of like the growth of accepting that. But yeah, I think that covers it.
One last thing.
If you could all think of one piece of advice, something short and sweet, to give our students completing a major work sometime in the next 12 months, what would it be? Anyone can go first. Orlando's ready.
Thank you. Well, I would say from my major work, the biggest thing that I learned, and that Miss Yarnazelli, a retired teacher now, pointed out, was that doing any kind of creative work in Year 12 allows you to really glimpse at your potential. And I think, no matter how you do, no matter what kind of marks you get to kind of see what you can do and see what you can create. And it's wonderful to have, the culmination of a year's work in a single piece, whether that's, paintings, whether that's an extension to major work. So I think my one piece of advice would be to aim high. I think, trying isn't a bad thing, and trying really hard can be fun. You don't really have anything to lose. So yeah, I'd say try really hard, have ambition, and see where it gets you. Yeah.
You don't have to. Yeah.
I would say that doing a major work isn't easy. No one said it would be. It's a year-long project. There's a lot that goes into it, a lot of time, a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of actually doing. And there's going to be a lot on your plate, so absolutely good time management, that's great. Get your portfolio done early as you go. That would have been fantastic if I'd done that better. But what I would say, and this is something that I've taken away for sure from my major work, is that once you've crossed that hurdle, once you've come out the other side and you have this awesome thing in front of you that was all something you created, it feels amazing for one. But moving forward, it's if you can overcome that, you can overcome the challenges you had there, you'll be able to do anything moving forward. Whenever I come up against something that I feel is daunting, whether it's a project at work or in my life, it's I made this cool major work back when I was 17, so whatever it is I'm going through now at 23, I've got that. I'm all good. I can get through it. So it's you can do this and you can do other stuff moving forward. That's what I'd say.
I think something that's touched on was when you're starting a project or completing your project, it's okay to not know everything. It's a very easy mindset to fall into of only wanting to do stuff that you know how to do. And in a lot of projects, both ones at uni and personal ones, just trying something new is almost always, from experience, kind of produces something that is so much more interesting, because while you do ultimately want to produce an amazing creative expression, whether it's for an assessment or just something for yourself, treating the process and the journey as finding a compromise between your inner perfectionist of wanting it to look beautiful, but then also understanding that it's good to mess up is such a good skill, and it's so hard to get out of, especially after high school where everything is about marks. But yeah, teaching yourself to try stuff and finding that balance where you can sort of be okay with failing, or even expecting to fail, it makes the process both extremely infuriating, but then at the end, amazingly enjoyable to look back on, because you've gotten something out of it.
I would say, just thinking about what advice I would have found useful, probably not to consider uni as a career move, and just take it as something to experience and learn. I picked National Art School because I enjoyed art and I didn't really enjoy anything else. I was good at maths, but I didn't want to be a mathematician. And that just sounded like an absolute bore-fest if I did that at uni. So I just went with what I enjoyed at the time and what I genuinely found fun. I think if you go down that route of what you purely enjoy, you will have a good time at uni, and the rest of the career things that you might put your pressure on yourself about will kind of unfold itself.
Such beautiful, wise words, and lots of warmth and love as well. Thank you so much. Can we all join Robin and I in thanking you? We've got a small gift from each of you, and we wish you all the very, very best with your future journeys. Thank you so much.